sword that restrained the demon, it woke up, and the ropes broke at that instant. With the demon freed, Fushiguro revealed he was sacrificing himself first, before Makora knocked him into a wall, killing him at that instant. At the sight of this, Haruto realized he was next, and Makora raised his hand to end him. He had not realized that his curse technique grants him 6 extra lives, stocking them up as markings under his eyes, until all 6 lives were exhausted. But as Makora tried to crush him into the ground, Sukuna had managed to save him, and as he spotted Fushiguro's unconscious body, he realized he had nearly finished the ritual, and discovered that keeping Haruto alive was the only way to reverse it from becoming permanent and sealing Fushiguro's death. Unwilling to allow him to die, he decided to revive his soul and began walking towards the Shikigami. He thought Fushiguro would remain unconscious for as long as it was alive, and realized he needed to eliminate it to nullify the subjugation ritual. So as he readied himself, Makora nearly ended him, but the backlash of the wind from their collision shattered the glasses and even wrecked the ground. As Makora awakened the power in his stake, he nearly split Sukuna apart, but as he managed to knock him to the side, he sliced across his body. At that instant, they repelled each other, but Sukuna returned with a soda and thought he was only getting started. He had noticed that Makora's stake was the Sword of Exorcism, a powerful weapon that was imbued with reverse curse technique, and could have exorcised him if he was a cursed spirit. So with a gesture, he slashed Makora's body, but as he dragged him through a line of glasses, he hurled him away. But Sukuna was starting to enjoy the fight, and as he dodged his attack, he began to backflip at incredible speed. Even so, Makora followed him, nearly crushing his body, but Sukuna knocked him away, before slicing his arms, and even severing his foot. Growing angry, Makora released a roar that sent Sukuna crashing over the rooftops, but as he stuck onto a wall, Makora tried to crush him with all his weight. Sukuna pushed him away, but as they bumped fists, the window shattered from the backlash of the wind from their collision. As they descended to a lower floor, they began trading blows with blinding speed as the entire building began slashing apart, before crumbling in an instant. However, Makora already made it outside, but as Sukuna bound him with a rope, he hurled him far off into a building. Growing desperate, Makora began launching vehicles towards him, but as Sukuna repelled them easily, he launched back the others, and with Makora's face nearly slicing off, he managed to hold it back, acquiring a new technique at that moment. While the battle raged on, Haruto tried to escape, but a car nearly crushed his worthless body. At that moment, he noticed the suspended buildings above him, but Sukuna and Makora continued their chaotic battle through the city, and Sukuna sliced Makora's insides. However, he continued with his attack, but as Sukuna snapped his blade into pieces, he kicked him to the outside before knocking him into a building. At that moment, Makora released the wheel, but as Sukuna tried slicing him, he destroyed the entire place. With the demon relentless, Sukuna decided to restrain him with ropes, but he eventually broke free with a force that pulled down a dozen buildings at the same time. Without holding back, they continued wrecking the entire city, and as Makora managed to land a hit, Sukuna noticed he was gaining cursed energy. So as he bashed him with a train, the demon hurled it away, but Sukuna was unscathed. And as he sliced up the walls, he killed all the regulars within 100 meters radius. He was enjoying every moment of this, and as Makora returned, he sliced him into pieces, sending him crashing into a building. However, Makora managed to crawl outside, and as he hurled the tower, Sukuna split it into smaller pieces, causing a rain of debris to fall over the city. At the same time, a plane blew up in the sky, but Sukuna repelled Makora away, smacking him into the water. Before he could escape, he restrained him underwater, but as Makora absorbed the entire pool, he dispersed it at that instant. With a single touch, Sukuna sliced him 1,000 times, severing the entire city along with him. However, as the demon healed his body, Sukuna realized he was growing stronger ever since the great wheel began revolving. Sukuna's domain was unlike others, in that it does not cut out a separate space with a barrier, but was like painting a picture in the air without a canvas. It was truly a divine feat. and with a pack that allowed anyone to escape. It had an effective hit range of 200 meters, although he had lowered it to 140 meters to save Fushiguro from its effects. At that instant, he sliced Makora away with his first technique, Fillet, which cuts everything with cursed energy away. However, he then unleashed Dissect, a slicing technique that annihilates all things without cursed energy, killing everyone hiding inside the tunnels. However, as Makora was close to finishing its regeneration, it was about to become even stronger than Sukuna's current form. By the time it was all over, Makora was already dead, and Sukuna told Haruta to get lost. But as the loser began running away, thinking it was another lucky day, his face sliced in half, as his extra lives had all been exhausted. At the same time, Sukuna realized that Yuji was about to take back control of his body, so he abandoned Fushiguro at the healing facility. But the principal already sensed his presence. Just then, he allowed Yuji to take back control. But as Yuji saw the devastation before his eyes, all the memories began flashing through his mind at the same time. However, he was determined to move forward, or he would be nothing but a murderer. Meanwhile, Nanami was wandering through a corridor, having managed to survive Jogo's attack. But as he came across an army of transfigured humans, he began to remember his dream of building a house on a secluded beach. Thinking he could still achieve this dream, he began to exorcise the curses, slaying them with every ounce of his strength. As a curse tried to knock him down, Nanami managed to exorcise it, but as his strength was nearly exhausted, a curse smacked him to the floor before kicking him away. Even so, Nanami would not give up and began to slice them with all his anger, but imagined he was living a serene life on the island. At the same time, Yuji had arrived at the station, but as he heard the noises, he began hurrying towards the sound. On the other side, Nanami continued slashing the curses, enduring their attacks, and slaying every single last one of them until he was completely exhausted. But at that moment, Mahito appeared behind him, telling him that he has been watching him the entire time. Just then, Yuji arrived, and as he spotted them together, Nanami told him to take over the rest of the battle, as Mahito blew him up at that instant. The sight of it left Yuji shocked, but as he grew desperate for revenge, he began running at Mahito. At that moment, Mahito cast a transfigured human towards him. However, Yuji managed to hold it with every strength in his body, but as Mahito popped out, he punched his face, sending him rolling away. Even so, Yuji managed to stabilize himself on a pillar, narrowly dodging the curse as it attacked. Before his eyes, Mahito burst out of the monster, but Yuji managed to dodge his attack. With his face spurting blood from Mahito's earlier attack, he demanded to know why Mahito was killing so many humans. But Mahito told him that they are actually the same, and said that Yuji could never beat him until he accepts this. Unwilling to do so, Yuji decided to awaken his divergent fists, but with a touch, Mahito forced cursed hands out of the monster as it began pushing against the wall, narrowing the space on them. But they began walking towards each other, with Mahito summoning his cursed energy, until they were eventually narrowed into the corner. Thinking Yuji was trapped, Mahito tried blasting him. But as he realized he had vanished, Yuji bashed his face, and as he stamped on him, he kicked the curse all the way back. At that instant, sharp blades sliced towards him, but Yuji landed double blows on the monster, managing to create enough space to dodge the blades. With his divergent fist, he landed another blow that made the curse recoil, but as he dodged sharp spikes, Mahito tried to stamp on him. Luckily, Yuji managed to evade it, but as he stamped him again, Mahito caught his foot. But when his punch missed, Yuji used his own momentum to bash his face into the ground, severing his hand instantly. However, the curse continued closing in on them, so Yuji punched his way through its belly. But as he walked out like a Giga Chad, Mahito said it was only a warm-up and suggested they start round 2. As he began launching smaller curses at Yuji, he continued chasing him as he ran, putting holes into the wall. With an inflated leg, he began trying to crush Yuji, but as he managed to evade it, he hurled a case towards Mahito, but the menace sliced it easily. However, Yuji had already entered an elevator, but as it began ascending towards the top, Yuji prepared his divergent fists, ready for the next attack. At that instant, the roof exploded, but Yuji managed to land a punch, and as the lines snapped, the lift began sliding down. When Mahito landed inside, Yuji was already waiting at the top, but Mahito dodged his blow, pulling him close for a kiss before stabbing the wall behind him. Without hesitating, Yuji knocked him back with a blow, following with another attack. But Mahito opened his own belly to avoid his punch. Immediately, he sliced the last line, sending the lift sliding down. But Yuji already held onto the severed lines. Before long, Mahito exited the elevator, but Yuji punched away his curse and leaped into the lower floor to evade another curse. However, when a giant hand buried him, Yuji punched his way out, shattering it to pieces. At that moment, Mahito realized he could be damaged by a single blow and began to keep his distance. By the time Yuji followed him into the corner, he spotted two regulars before him, but as they tried telling him that there were monsters lurking around, Yuji began wondering how Mahito vanished. Just as he began telling them to leave, Mahito knocked him with a giant fist, sending him rolling down the ground. He had managed to transfigure the man, and as he touched the other, he turned him into a cursed sword. A few hours ago, while they were preparing their plan to capture Yuji, Mahito had suggested they kill him instead. But when Jogo tried objecting, he had taken off, creating a clone out of his body, and sending him off to the other side of the station. At the same time, Mahito's clone had come across Kujisaki, but as she prepared to exorcise him, she launched cursed nails to the sign above him, and just as it fell, she kicked the nails into his face, snapping her fingers to activate the technique. However, as the dust cleared, she realized that Mahito was still alive, and as he revealed that her nails could not exorcise him, he thought that showing her corpse to Yuji would definitely break his soul. Inside the station, Mahito continued killing the regulars, but as Yuji rushed to stop him, he knocked him aside, sending him rolling down the floor. As he rushed towards Yuji, a regular transformed into a curse before him, blowing up at that instant. At the same time, Mahito had snuck up on Yuji and was ready to end him, but outside the station, Kujisaki dodged the clone's attack. As she launched nails towards him, he dodged them easily and began trying to crush her with his extended arms. But as she managed to dodge his attack, she nailed him right in the face, but he blocked her next attack and extended his arms to destroy the rooftop. However, Kujisaki was unscathed, and as Mahito extended his arm towards her, she dodged, leaping back immediately. At that moment, Mahito realized she must have discovered his curse technique, so as he charged at her, dodging her cursed nails, he hurled signs towards her, but she destroyed them and managed to leap away from him. Even so, he continued with his attack, eventually piercing her arm. But as she smashed the spike, Mahito flashed towards her, slashing her body at that instant. Thinking she couldn't beat him, Mahito began telling her that her cursed nails couldn't exorcise him. But as she ran over a roof, she hurled nails on the floor, and leaping down, she activated Hairpin, piercing Mahito's body at that instant. Before he knew it, she landed on top of his body, and as she pierced him with another nail, she activated Resonance, damaging the real Mahito at that moment. As Yuji noticed the technique, he realized that Kujisaki must have been responsible for the damage. But outside the station, Mahito's clone realized that Kujisaki was also his natural enemy who could successfully damage his soul, and even Kujisaki had discovered that he was a double, having sensed her cursed energy inside another cursed spirit. At the same time, Yuji punched Mahito away, and followed up with continued strikes, knocking him around without the slightest break to catch his breath, and as he smacked him into a pillar, he kicked him far off into another. Without hesitating, he hit him with Black Flash, and Yuji thought he could really end him, so he landed another. He was glad to have some support, and continued bashing Mahito into the pillar, looking to end him right here. Meanwhile outside, Kujisaki was ready to end the clone, but as he realized he doesn't stand a chance with her, he began running away. So to end him anyway, Kujisaki ran after him, thinking he intends to kill other people. But as he leaped into the underground, she thought she would easily end him there. Meanwhile, Mahito had split himself into smaller curses to evade Yuji's blow. But as Yuji wondered which of the curses was his true soul, he noticed the one with cursed energy, and crushed it at an instant. However, Mahito had intentionally tricked him. But both Mahitos were already drawing closer to each other, and just as Yuji spotted both of them, he thought they intend to merge, but as they ran past each other, Yuji noticed Kujisaki ahead. Realizing Mahito intends to attack her, he screamed at her to run away, but Mahito touched her face before she knew it, and Yuji bashed the clone into the wall. Immediately, he rushed to her, but she already realized her life was over.
悪くなかった。
At the sight of this, Yuji was completely disoriented, and as the pain nearly made him cry, Mahito began charging at him, thinking his plan was genius, and punched him with Black Flash, nearly rupturing his insides. And as he pulled him back, Mahito flung him into the wall, before hurling him into a pillar, saying that he would never be defeated easily. But as he turned his arm into a cleaver and tried to end him, Yuji vanished at the sound of a clap, and Todo appeared at that moment. Just then, he began screaming at Yuji to get up, saying that the war was only just starting. However, Yuji's spirit was already broken, and as he began to cry, he revealed that all his friends were dead already, and he thought it was his fault. At that moment, Mahito began running at them, thinking he could end Hokage while he was distracted. But as Hokage teleported at that instant, Mahito returned to slay Yuji, but he teleported away, and before he knew it, Todo knocked him with a kick, but switched Hokage with a clap before he crashed into him. As Mahito thought his technique was impressive, Todo began telling Yuji to man up, saying that they are jujitsu sorcerers, and that they must continue to live for their comrades. For this reason, he said they must continue fighting, and said this was their punishment for being sorcerers. Just then, Hokage applied his healing technique on Yuji, saying that all his previous injuries would not worsen, and that all the pains have been taken away. However, all new injuries would not be healed, and Hokage told him that he's applied the same technique to Kujisaki, hoping she would survive. These words ignited Yuji's soul, but Hokage began hurrying away, saying that he would carry her away to the healing facility. At the same time, Todo began running towards Mahito, and as he dodged his attack, he kicked his midsection. But as Mahito returned, Todo repelled all his attacks, clapping each time to switch positions. But as Mahito transformed his body into a cutter, he destroyed the roof, and managed to evade Todo's punch. With a clap, Todo teleported behind him. But as Mahito thought he would capture him, he teleported again. At that instant, a curse nearly pierced his body, but as Todo managed to dodge it, Mahito hoped he would teleport again. But as Yuji appeared before his eyes, he landed a Black Flash, looking to avenge Nanami. However, Mahito managed to survive, but Todo and Yuji decided to team up. As Mahito rushed in with a hammer, knocking them away, Todo switched with Yuji. But as Yuji launched towards him, the impact of his landing destroyed the entire ground, but he followed Mahito into the underground. As Mahito began running in the shadows, zigzagging through the pillars, he split himself into two, but Todo teleported him with a clap. So as they fought him at the same time, each unable to land any attacks on the other, Mahito released huge curses on them. However, as they managed to evade them, Mahito began wondering if he could kill both of them. Realizing Todo was stronger, Mahito thought he should be eliminated first. And as he summoned a huge curse that rushed at them, they began running down the rail track. But another curse appeared before them, so Todo teleported them off the track. So as they spotted Mahito, Yuji hurled a rock towards him. But as Todo switched positions with it, he awakened a new ability at that moment, and landed Black Flash. However, the menace just wouldn't die, and as he vomited a bunch of transfigured humans, he unleashed huge monsters on them, overwhelming them with the attack, and Todo realized that switching positions was useless. Eventually, the ground exploded, but as Yuji and Todo managed to make it outside, Mahito challenged Yuji to a fight to the death. Looking to make an impression of his own, Todo teleported Mahito with a clap, and as he managed to restrain him, Yuji tried to end his life, but as the nutcase unscrewed his own head, two ugly eyes grew in its place. So as Yuji and Todo attacked the body, it managed to repel them with his extended arms, while the head grew smaller limbs as he continued to run away. With Mahito enjoying every moment of this battle, he activated soul multiplicity, and combining a soul to a rejected transfigured human, he created a cursed mutant. Just then, the mutant began running at Todo, but as he dodged the extended arms, he switched their positions with a clap, but the mutant returned immediately. Thinking Mahito's body holds the most power, Todo clapped to switch the body with Mahito's new form. So as Yuji punched him away, he continued hammering him with blows. At the same time, the curse attacked Todo, but as he thought it was a weak monster, he tried to end it with a single blow, but it dodged his attack and bashed him in the face. As the sight made Yuji lose focus, Mahito punched him away, but as the curse hit Todo's midsection, it bashed him into the far wall, sending him crashing down the other side. And as the curse landed before him, Todo hurled a hanger with cursed energy, but as he switched positions with it, he killed it with a single blow. But at that moment, two other mutants appeared behind him, and Todo realized the fight was about to get worse. Meanwhile, Mahito had merged back with his old body, and as he was glad to finally separate Todo from Yuji, he summoned cursed worms out of the ground. But even as he took off, they followed him, destroying the tower in an instant. However, when a worm tried to devour his body, Yuji hurled a sign towards it, splitting its head instantly. So as he began skidding down another worm, he noticed Mahito below, and as the sight of his face made him angry, Yuji launched at him with a kick, but Mahito blocked his attack easily, before hurling him a mile away, sending him crashing hard on the ground. But as Mahito followed him, looking to utilize the opportunity, he realized that Todo had returned, and discovered that the mutants were all dead. Wondering how he could eliminate Todo, he decided to cast a domain expansion spell, realizing he could keep it for 1/10 of a second just like Gojo did. Desperate to save himself, Todo activated a simple domain spell, but Yuji was already running towards Mahito, looking to stop him from completing the domain. However, as Mahito had already completed his technique, he appeared in Sukuna's inner realm, and as he realized Sukuna was intentionally sparing his life, he told him that he would kill Yuji to get rid of his existence, and told him to shut up and watch from the side. At that instant, Todo's hand began to transform, with Mahito having already made contact with him. But as he sliced off his hand, the severed part exploded, raining spikes across his body. With Yuji distracted, Mahito punched him away, and rushed off to end Todo, seeing as he could no longer use his teleportation technique. However, Mahito knew that he couldn't use his own technique, as the domain expansion spell had drained his cursed energy. But as he hit him with a black flash, Todo already focused his cursed energy inside his stomach, minimizing the impact. But as Mahito recovered his cursed technique, he began rushing to end him, but at that moment, his locket broke. And as it hit the ground, revealing Yuji and Todo's K-pop crush, Mahito was enchanted at the sight, and Todo began to imagine he was battering his face. So at that instant, he slapped Mahito's hand, switching places with Yuji, and he managed to land a black flash. However, Todo's hand was already burned, but he thought the sacrifice was worth it. Desperate to utilize this advantage, Yuji began running towards Mahito, but noticed that Todo had passed out. At the same time, Mahito was wondering how his plan went south, but soon realized that he has discovered the true essence of his soul. He thought he was an insect that was only developing from a pupa, and at that moment, he used his idle transfiguration technique on himself, and as he turned into a mass of ugly curses, he took a new form at that instant. With Yuji wondering how Mahito acquired this new body, Mahito began telling him that his new ability to use the Black Flash had revealed the true essence of his soul, and said that killing him would further awaken his powers. But as he began walking towards Yuji, Yuji walked to meet him. But just as he tried to deliver a kick, Mahito restrained his leg, but before he could damage him, Yuji had broken out of his grip, stamping hard on his tail. So as he blocked his attack, landing a hard blow to his midsection, he realized that the surface was harder than Choso's body. Noticing his distraction, Mahito landed a blow, but before he could slash him, Yuji leaped back immediately. However, he was already wounded, so as Mahito attacked again, continually whipping his blades to slay him, Yuji desperately defended himself, but as he evaded Mahito's attacks, he began hammering him with continued blows. With Mahito unscathed, Yuji realized his strength has gone up to a different level, and as his mouth was slashed on the side, the menace eventually knocked him away. Just as he regained his balance, Mahito dived through the dust, and as he caught his face, he planted him hard into the ground, and the impact caused an earthquake. So as they fell into the sewers, Yuji realized that his best hope at defeating Mahito was to land a black flash, but as his body had grown too weak, his knee buckled. At the sight of this, Mahito thought it was over for him, but when he tried to attack, his body gave out at that moment, having been damaged by the earlier black flash. Right then, Yuji began striking his knee, desperate to bring back feeling into it. And as Mahito realized their energy was down to the last bank, he stamped on the water, causing a huge flood to nearly sweep Yuji away. But as he drew cursed energy across his body, successfully repelling the water, Mahito tried to eliminate him. Luckily, Yuji managed to dodge it, but as he prepared his own attack, Mahito launched himself away. So he began flashing across the sewers, but as he tried attacking Yuji from the rear, he noticed his presence and directed his blow towards his face. Just as the scales peeled off, he made contact with his arm, but as Mahito thought he could still eliminate him, Yuji released the black flash, nearly blasting him away. As Mahito tried to recover, Todo appeared on the edge, successfully distracting him. And as he thought he intends to switch places, Yuji hit him with a thunderous black flash, sending him flying out of the sewers. With Mahito completely drained, Yuji began to approach him, looking to end him this time, and Mahito realized he was out of transfigured humans. As Yuji began saying that they are the same, he revealed that he wasn't a nutcase, and that he would kill him as many times as he needs to, without the slightest reasons to it. But as these words drove fear into Mahito's disgusting heart, he began running away as if he was the prey in a frozen tundra, desperate to stay alive. But as he twisted his ankle, he realized he couldn't move, and his hunter appeared before his eyes. Thinking he was about to die, Mahito began to cry, desperately hurling snow to keep him away. But as the mud slapped his face, he stared back at his soul before smashing the ice under him and kicking him away. Even so, Mahito remained desperate to live and began dragging himself over the snow. But as Geto appeared before his eyes, they snapped back to reality, and Mahito realized his savior has arrived. Meanwhile, Choso was still seeing Yuji in his dreams, and continued wondering who he is. He thought seeing him once again would give him an answer, and hoped it would help him to discover more of himself. At the same time, Geto decided to abandon Mahito, but as Yuji began running towards them, hoping to free Gojo from his prison, Geto released a cursed monster into the ground. And at that instant, Yuji fell into its gaping mouth, but as he thought he was about to be swallowed, he fell back on the ground. With Yuji confused as to what happened, Geto began telling him that he can control first-grade cursed spirits, and said he has an endless number of curses at his disposal that he could easily use in toying with Yuji. So as Yuji rushed towards him, he released another curse, but as he leaped over it, ready to hit him with black flash, Geto repelled him with cursed centipedes, and they began to devour his body. Thinking he was distracted, Mahito tried to touch Geto, but he moved away at that instant. And as Mahito realized it was over for him, Geto began to absorb him into an orb. Realizing it was the end, Mahito fought desperately to escape, but was eventually swallowed up. With Yuji in shock at the sight, Geto began telling him that his curse technique was Uzumaki, the supreme art of cursed spirit manipulation, which combines the absorbed cursed spirit into him, allowing him to harness the curse's technique. And just as he let out those words, he swallowed up the orb, but soon spotted Momo above him. At the same time, Noritoshi noticed her signal and launched cursed arrows towards Geto, but he wasn't even scratched. So as he began evading more attacks, he blocked a cursed bullet at the same time. But as Kasumi appeared behind him, looking to send him off to Nirvana, she swung her blade for a quick draw. But Geto caught it easily. Before her eyes, he snapped it in half and activated his Uzumaki technique, summoning a deformed Mahito. At that moment, the curse began extending towards Kasumi, but as it nearly made contact with her, the entire ground was slashed at that instant, as Kasake managed to save her. Just then, Panda and Noritoshi arrived, and as they realized Yuji was back in control of his body, they began wondering how they could snatch the prison realm from Geto. At the same time, Choso had arrived, and as his heart began to pound in his chest, he remembered his family's history, because after his mother got impregnated by a cursed spirit, a certain man had abducted her, realizing she was special, and used her as an experiment for making cursed babies. At that moment, he realized the cursed brain that has taken over Geto's body was that man, and that his name was actually Kenjaku. But at this revelation, everyone realized that Kenjaku was a 150-year-old sorcerer who was forever known as the worst sorcerer in history. With Choso growing angry, he began threatening to kill him for trying to make him eliminate Yuji. However, as Urame appeared before him, he told him to step back, but Choso was determined to get his revenge. The side effect of his blood technique was the ability to sense the death of his brothers no matter the distance. And the same way he had sensed the death of his cursed brothers when they were killed, he had sensed Yuji's death in the final moments of their battle. For this reason, he was certain that Yuji was his brother, and as he was ready to exterminate both of them, he prepared his blood manipulation technique. Compressing the blood's pressure, he launched it towards Urame, but as he managed to shield it, Choso tried slashing them at that instant. But just as Kenjaku evaded it, Choso sliced the ground around him, so Kenjaku raised it 1,000 feet towards the sky. Unwilling to allow him to escape, Choso perched on it, destroying all the edges, and as Kenjaku took off towards the sky, Choso launched piercing blood, but he managed to evade it, using his cursed monster to move far away. But as he released a curse towards him, Choso managed to split it apart, but Kenjaku continued dodging his attack. Noticing his smirk, Choso summoned Blood Rain, but Kenjaku nearly crashed into him. As Choso prepared for a fight, Kenjaku materialized behind him, knocking him back with a blow, and a curse punched him off the giant pillar. However, Choso managed to use his blood clot as a rocket launcher and returned back to the top. But as he directed his piercing blood, an ancient device repelled it. So with Choso growing angry, he decided to attack him. But Kenjaku easily evaded all his attacks. And as Choso's anger continued to propel him, Kenjaku restrained his arm before kneeing him in the face, sending him staggering back. Even so, he continued with the attacks. But as Kenjaku kicked his midsection, he told him to give up already. Unwilling to quit anyway, Choso followed him, saying he would gladly sacrifice his own life for Yuji. And at the same time, the others noticed he was on their side, so Noritoshi suggested they support him, thinking their combined attacks could successfully leave a mark on Kenjaku and allow them to steal the prison realm. They began running at the same time. But just before getting close, Urame appeared before them, activating his ice formation curse technique. An ice mound trapped them instantly, and they realized it was impossible to break out of it. However, Kenjaku told him to spare their lives, saying he needs them as messengers, but as his hand regenerated, Urame wondered if they all have to be spared. With Choso unwilling to stop, he began to melt it, but Urame was already waiting to end his life. At that instant, Yuji broke the ice, realizing that Sukuna's innate abilities must have helped him slip out of the ice mound. However, when he tried telling Choso to fight as his ally, Choso told him that he intends to protect him like his older brother. Deciding to utilize the opportunity, Momo unleashed her wind scythe. But as Urame slapped it away, she suggested they buy time for the others to break out of the ice. However, Urame already had enough and was ready to turn everyone into ice, so he launched Icefall to restrain them. But as ice crystals began raining down from above, Yuji thought his end was near. Luckily, Yuki appeared at that moment, saving him from getting isekai'd. She was Geto and Gojo's old friend, the last special grade sorcerer in the world, and as she remembered their last conversation, she decided to ask what kind of girl he likes, as she reminded him that their original intention was to advance humanity to the point of never needing cursed energy. Kenjaku told her that his plans changed already, and that his new desire was to optimize cursed energy. However, she had already realized he wasn't Geto, and began saying that she discovered a fault in his plan. Because with other countries having almost no cursed spirits, she thought Tenjin's barrier, which protects their city, would stop his cursed spirits from spreading across the world. Realizing she was clueless, Kenjaku told her that he's carefully plotted his plans, and as he summoned cursed energy, he revealed that his previous failed attempts allowed him to extract the final technique he needed. Realizing what it could be, Yuki demanded to know where Mahito was, seeing as his curse technique which interferes with souls was the only way to perfect Kenjaku's plans. But when Yuji told her that Kenjaku had absorbed him already, she realized they were screwed. At that moment, Kenjaku cast Idol Transfiguration, and as the curse symbol appeared across the sky, Yuki realized that he had remotely activated the curse technique. When she wondered how he managed to do so, Kenjaku told her that he activated the Idol Transfiguration spell on two types of non-sorcerers he already marked. The first of these two types were regulars he already fed with cursed objects, the same way Yuji ate Sukuna's finger, while the second of these types were people who were born with cursed techniques, but had no idea they were sorcerers. For the second type, he had decided to adjust their brains into becoming sorcerers, and made the first types a vessel. This way, he could deepen their understanding of cursed energy, and have them eliminate each other to create more cursed spirits. He said they would all be as strong as Yuji, and would carry on his will of annihilating the entire world. But at that moment, the ice melted off, and as Urame grew sick, he realized that Choso's poisonous blood has been absorbed into his body when he regenerated his hand. At the same time, the others had also been freed, but Kenjaku began saying that he's made a pact with cursed spirits. Even though being inside this new body had annulled the pact, he decided to summon the cursed spirits from out of the ground. And as the darkness spread around them, thick black liquid began rising like pillars, pulling more curses from out of the ground. As they all realized it was over for them, Kenjaku revealed the prison realm, and as he entered into the darkness, Yuji screamed for Gojo, realizing he would never see him again.
虎杖雄二 僕が殺します。